The air was thick with secrets that morning. The kind that cling to your skin like damp fog. 16-year-old Emily Harper sat curled in the backseat of her parents' rusted Chevy. Her knees pressed against her chest. A faded denim jacket bunched under her chin. The jacket, her favorite, had her initials. E.H. embroidered in crimson thread by her late grandmother. Outside, the rolling hills of Tennessee blurred past. A smear of green and gray under a sky that refused to commit to rain or sun. Her mother, Cassandra, gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her father, Derek, stared out the passenger window, his fingers drumming an uneven rhythm on the armrest. Neither spoke. Emily's stomach churned. She wasn't naive, she knew something was wrong. Where are we going? Her voice cut through the silence. Small but sharp. Cassandra's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. But she didn't meet Emily's gaze. To your grandpa's place, she said, her tone too measured, too rehearsed. Just for a bit. Emily's brow furrowed. Like that time you went to Vegas, she pressed. Derek let out a sound, half scoff, half sigh. No, kiddo, this is different. The car slowed as it turned onto a gravel driveway, crunching toward a weathered farmhouse nestled among oak trees. Emily's grip tightened on her backpack strap. Her pulse racing. She wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but the words stuck in her throat. Derek reached back, popped her door open, and muttered, "Go on, he's waiting." Emily hesitated, her sneakers scuffing the floor mat. She stepped out, the gravel biting into her soles. Her grandfather, Walter Grayson, stood on the porch, his flannel shirt tucked neatly into jeans, a pair of pruning shears in hand. His face, lined with years of sun and worry, creased in confusion. "What's this about?" he called, glancing from Emily to the car. "They didn't say," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Before she could turn back, the Chevy's engine growled. The tires spun, kicking up dust that stung her eyes. She froze, watching the taillights shrink down the road, waiting for the brake lights to flash, for her mother's voice to call out, Wait, we forgot something." But the car vanished around the bend, leaving only silence and the faint hum of cicadas. Emily didn't cry, not yet. Her body hadn't caught up to her brain, hadn't processed the weight of what had just happened. Walter stepped forward, his work boots heavy on the porch steps. "Come on inside, he said softly, his voice steady but laced with something unspoken. She followed, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her world shrinking to the creak of the screen door. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and old books. Walter busied himself at the stove, setting a kettle to boil, muttering about making macaroni. Emily stood by the window, her eyes locked on the empty road. Every passing car sent a jolt through her, a flicker of hope that fizzled when the vehicle didn't slow. "You still like that art class at school?" Walter asked, trying to fill the quiet. Emily nodded, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying her mother's too smooth words, her father's averted gaze. That night, in a guest room that smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs, Emily unzipped her backpack. She reached for the things she always carried, her Polaroid camera, the leather journal she'd filled with sketches, a silver locket her grandmother had given her. They were gone. In their place, crumpled at the bottom, was a receipt from a pawn shop in Knoxville. Item codes: Locket S. Polaroid cam. Her breath caught, sharp and painful. Her parents hadn't just left her, they'd sold her memories, traded her past for cash. The betrayal sank into her like a blade, cold and precise. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the receipt clutched in her fist until her hand ached. Morning came, gray and heavy. Walter made pancakes, the kitchen warm with the scent of butter and syrup. He tried to talk, about the garden, about the county fair next month, but Emily's answers were short. Her eyes darting to the window. She remembered a week ago, asking her mom to come to her school's art showcase. Cassandra had smiled, all teeth, and said, "Got something bigger that night." Now Emily knew what that something was. They'd been planning this, plotting to erase her from their lives. The days that followed were a haze. Grief wasn't a straight line, it coiled around her, striking in quiet moments. the scent of Walter's pipe tobacco lingering in his armchair, the empty space at the dinner table where his stories used to be. Emily stopped running to the window when cars passed. But she couldn't stop watching. Couldn't stop hoping. Each night, she traced the embroidered initials on her jacket, grounding herself in the only piece of her old life she had left. Walter was more than a caretaker. He was a shield, a quiet force who saw her not as a burden but as a spark. He taught her to prune roses, to change a tire, to laugh even when her heart felt like lead. In his presence, Emily began to rebuild, piece by piece. Though the wound of her parents' abandonment never fully closed, she didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that years later, Cassandra and Derek would return. Not for her, but for the fortune Walter had built. A legacy they'd try to steal with lies and forged papers. But that was a battle for another day. For now, Emily was 16, standing on the edge of a new life, learning to carry the weight of being left behind. The glass doors of Harper Holdings gleamed under the Nashville sun, a beacon of everything Emily Harper had built from the ashes of her past. At 26, she was no longer the girl left on her grandfather's porch a decade ago. She was a force, CEO of a thriving tech firm. A woman who'd turned pain into purpose. But today, the air inside her company's sleek lobby crackled with tension. Emily stood at the edge of the executive conference room, her team's voices a low hum as they reviewed quarterly data. Then the door burst open. Rachel, her head of security, a woman who'd once stared down a riot without flinching, strode in, her face tight. "You need to see this. Lobby, now." Emily's heels struck the marble floor with purpose as she followed Rachel to the elevator. Her pulse quickened, not from fear but from instinct. She knew trouble when it came knocking. The doors slid open, and chaos spilled out. A crowd of employees, onlookers, and reporters clogged the lobby. Phones raised, lights flashing. At the center of it all stood Cassandra and Derek. Her parents, the people who'd abandoned her at 16 without a backward glance. Cassandra, draped in a tailored ivory suit and pearls, looked like she'd stepped out of a campaign ad. Derek, all bravado, wore dark sunglasses indoors, his arms flung wide like a preacher at a revival. They weren't here to reconcile. They were here to perform. Emily Harper. Derek's voice boomed, drawing every eye. "This empire was built on our blood. She'd be nothing without us." The words landed like a slap. But Emily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her posture unyielding, her denim jacket, still embroidered with her initials, thrown over a crisp blazer. The crowd parted. Phones swiveled to her. "You left me when I was 16. She said, her voice steady, cutting through the noise like a blade. "You sold my childhood for pocket change and vanished. You have no claim to me or anything I've built." Cassandra clutched her chest, her lips trembling in a rehearsed display of hurt. "Sweetheart, don't say that. We were lost, young, broken, but we're still your parents." Emily's eyes narrowed. "No, you were thieves. You pawned my locket, my camera, my memories for drug money and scams. You've got 2 minutes to leave, or security will drag you out. And I'll file charges for trespassing and harassment." Derek's smile vanished. He took a step closer, his voice low. "You're not the only Harper. Emily, you can't lock us out forever." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "She's live again." Emily turned to the sea of faces, her gaze unwavering. "Let's be clear, these two didn't raise me. They ditched me. They only crawled back when they smelled money, my grandfather's money. This company? I built it from nothing. Legacy isn't what you exploit. It's what you protect." The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of streaming devices. Rachel signaled security, who moved in, professional but firm, ushering Cassandra and Derek toward the exit. Cassandra's pearls glinted as she shot Emily a venomous look. Derek muttered something under his breath, but the glass doors slid shut, sealing them out. By morning, the confrontation had exploded online, 3.1 million views and counting. Hashtags like #StandWithEmily and #LegacyNotBlood trended globally. Emily didn't watch the clips. She didn't need to. The truth was her weapon, and she'd wielded it. But the fight wasn't over. A week later, Emily sat in a Nashville courtroom, the air thick with anticipation. The gallery was packed, reporters, locals, even a few of Walter's old friends from the community college where he'd taught. Across the aisle, Cassandra and Derek sat with their lawyers, a pair of slick suits who oozed confidence. They'd sued Emily, claiming she'd manipulated Walter, a frail old man, into leaving her his $50 million estate. The accusation stung, but Emily was ready. Her lawyer, Clara Vaughn, a woman with a reputation for dismantling lies, stood beside her. Just tell the truth, Clara whispered. They didn't count on that. The trial opened with the plaintiff's attorney spinning a tale of a scheming granddaughter who'd wormed her way into Walter's will. A runaway returns, spends a few years playing dutiful, and suddenly she's the sole heir, he said. Smirking at the jury, Emily watched the jurors. One scribbled, another frowned. Then Clara took the floor. She presented custody records from 2015, proving Emily had been legally removed from her parents' care. She showed Walter's medical evaluations, confirming his sharp mind until his final days. Then came the video. Walter's face filled the screen. His voice steady. I'm Walter Grayson, sound in mind and body. I'm leaving my estate to Emily Harper because she's earned it. Not with flattery or schemes, but with integrity. She stayed when others left. She gave when others took. The courtroom went still. Emily's throat tightened, but she didn't look away. When it was her turn on the stand, she spoke clearly. He chose me because I didn't ask for his money. I asked for family. I stayed because that's what love does. Cassandra's testimony was a masterclass in crocodile tears. I sent letters, gifts. She sobbed. I wanted her back, but I was shut out. Emily waited, then struck. If you loved me, you wouldn't have sold my grandmother's locket. You don't abandon a kid and call it love. The judge, a woman with a no-nonsense stare, leaned forward. Case dismissed with prejudice. Miss Harper retains all rights to the estate. Further claims are barred. The gavel fell. It was over. Outside, the Tennessee sky was ablaze with sunset. Reporters swarmed, but Emily walked past, her head high. Some victories didn't need words. That night, she sat in her apartment, a cup of chamomile tea cooling on the table. Her phone buzzed with messages, support, media requests, strangers sharing their own stories of betrayal. One stood out, a DM from a stranger named Lucas, 29. From Memphis. I think we might share a father. I'm sorry for what you're going through. Emily's heart paused. A half-brother she'd never known. A new thread in a tangled past. Weeks later, Emily stood in the garden behind Walter's old farmhouse, now the headquarters of the Grayson Legacy Foundation. The launch event was small but powerful. Teachers, counselors, and teens with haunted eyes filled the crowd. This isn't about me, Emily said at the podium, her voice carrying over the rustling leaves. It's about those who've been betrayed by family, robbed of their voice. We're here to help them stand again. The applause was quiet but deep, the kind that lingers in your bones. At a quiet cafe days later, Emily met Lucas. He was lanky, with kind eyes that didn't resemble Derek's. I don't want anything, he said, fidgeting with his coffee cup. Just thought maybe we both lost something. Emily nodded. Blood made us siblings. Let's see if honesty makes us more. They talked for hours, a fragile bridge forming where none had existed. The foundation's first outreach session came soon after. At a partnered shelter, a girl, maybe 14, approached Emily, her voice barely audible. Can people really start over? Emily knelt, meeting her gaze. I don't just believe it. I've lived it. That night, in the Grayson Legacy Center, Emily passed Walter's portrait, now framed above stories of survivors. They tried to break me, she whispered, but I built instead. Her message to the world was simple. Legacy isn't blood. It's choice, choosing kindness over cruelty, building over burning, letting go of pain not to forget, but to prove it didn't win. To anyone facing betrayal, she'd say, you're not what they left. You're what you become.